So I'm Maggie Murphy, and I'm going to talk about my letterpress project, Premonition Press. Um, so while I have been a librarian who works with studio art students and faculty for over a decade, I have been a letterpress printer for less than a year. When I was in college, I studied printmaking and I loved it. And in preparing for this talk, it was difficult for me to find photographic proof of this fact, but here are some grainy pictures from 20 years ago that I was able to dig up from an old PhotoBucket account. My friend Amy Fleischer, who is an artist and bookmaker, is spread out around the etching press, but that is my hand resting on a screen in the bottom right. However, in my time working as a librarian, despite being around emerging and professional artists all the time, my own art practice has suffered. I've intermittently played around with quilting, collage, and relief printing, but my sustained focus has been on supporting the studio and research practices of others instead of developing a cohesive body of my own work myself. Last summer, after seeing my own students attend for years and encouraged by friends at UNC Greensboro School of Art, I decided to apply for a scholarship to go to Penland School of Craft in Western North Carolina to take a 2-week letterpress workshop. Although I learned relief printing, etching, intaglio, screen printing in college, my only previous experience in letterpress had been two brief, one about an hour, one about 2 hours, workshops at Small Craft Advisory Press in Tallahassee, Florida, and Spudnik Press Cooperative in Chicago, Illinois, while I was attending library conferences. At Penland, though, I got to compose and print wood and metal type on a range of different presses. I met some cool people in my workshop, like my friends Sydney Bibb, who is an interdisciplinary artist and teacher living half an hour away from me in Winston-Salem, and Emily Hunt, who has already returned to Penland for a winter residency in letterpress. Also, I learned everything I now know about letterpress from my teachers, Nick Silberg and Jerusha Graham. In addition, I learned how to combine laser cutting with letterpress, and for my final project, I created this pair of posters. The structures mimic a 4-pane window, with the first placing curtains over a half-tone screen image of clouds, and the other placing the clouds with 4 tiny, unobtrusive questions. As you might be able to tell from this brief overview of my work at Penland, I was experiencing a bit of an identity crisis there. As a librarian, I ask people who come to me to help them find information, images, ideas, and so on, a lot of questions. We call that conducting a reference interview. But in my workshop at Penland, I wasn't sure where to start finding myself again within the role of artist or creator. However, letterpress had reinvigorated my desire to make art. And when I got home, I pretty immediately scrounged together money I did not even really have to buy a tabletop press of my own, and I set it up in my guest bedroom. As you know, for letterpress printing, you don't just need a press, though. You need type, you need spacing, you need furniture, you need coins, keys, pica sticks, and so on. I am someone with a 6-figure student loan balance, so I did not have the money for all of that. I scoured eBay, I made friends with lifelong press operators and letterpress Facebook groups. People sent me stuff, and I started printing with some pretty wacky lockups featuring children's blocks, building blocks from a local creative reuse store, some magnets, and some other stuff. But despite needing to compose text in order to make prints, I didn't really know what I wanted to say. So instead, I continued printing questions like this one: who will feel the last cool breeze? This one reads, through the smoke, through the clouds, through an open window, what would you do with a rock? What would you do with a pair of wings? Can you make tools without machines? Will you register each new loss? As I continued to print questions like these, I gradually found the language to describe what drives me as a printer. I am interested in the materiality of letterpress, the combination of text and texture. I sometimes laser cut my own text. I investigate the properties of different papers. I apply flocking fibers directly to wet ink. I see what kinds of alternative printmaking techniques my press can support, such as pressure printing and calligraphy. But ultimately, like Mint said, my work is concerned with existential disquietude. I found some more adjectives I like, so ecological, spiritual, phenomenological, and otherwise. I use the speculative as a mode for both working through my anxiety and imagining different outcomes for the future. This one is difficult to read and on purpose, but it says, "Where am I if not in my body?" Instead of engaging in fine press work, I like to create small editions and monotypes that definitely bear evidence of their production. So I decided to call this project Premonition Press to give a name to the line of inquiry I am conducting out of my guest bedroom. In this past year of playfully extending the bounds of what I know how to do with my hands, I've also tried incorporating letterpress into books and other structures. This set of 4 cards that lives in a laser cut chipboard folder are printed over an unnaturally colored Riso sky and poke and prod some more at my climate crisis anxiety. And in this book, a scrap of paper on which I've printed "What couldn't you tell me" is barely visible in between sheets of translucent typewriter paper, along with ribbons and mementos. Ultimately, in about 8 months, I've transformed my guest bedroom into a small ragtag print shop that I am very proud of. And in January, I also completed my first artist residency at Direct Angle Press in New Hampshire, run by a super cool artist named Josh Dannon. In the work I started there, I began asking questions about the metaphysical potential of everyday objects and experiences. These prints also combine Riso and Letterpress, and I've been using public domain imagery and my own photos to create the images you see here. I hang them on telephone poles. They do not stay up for long, and I don't really know what happens to them, but I like to think they disappear because they are too weird for the neighborhood. And then finally, I got up the courage to apply to UNCG's MFA in Studio Arts, and I will start in the fall as a part-time student, completing my degree over 3 years while I continue to work as a librarian. This means that instead of being a visitor to the Studio Arts building where I started up a fledgling letterpress club this year with some friends, I will become a full-time citizen of the print shop, which we call Print World. In particular, I'm looking forward to playing more on Norma, a Vandercook 2 press that George Mason University graciously gave us, from whom we pulled an inaugural print last weekend. As I work towards completing my MFA, I look forward to asking a lot more questions. Thanks again to Lead and Partners in Print for having me today.